On the 7th of September 2015, my life took a rather devastating detour. I'd been experiencing a tremor in my left hand, increasingly small handwriting, low mood and fatigue. So my GP had referred me to a neurologist, and it was there that I was diagnosed with Parkinson's. That day, I joined a worldwide group of 10 million people, 4 million of them women, who are living with this awful, degenerative neurological condition. I was 47. There were a lot of tears to begin with, and I mean a lot of tears. It felt like the end of the world to have Parkinson's, but in reality, it's been a series of losses over the last 8 years, a cascade of grief. You know, in action movies, sometimes the heroes find themselves in a boat on the river, and the water starts to speed up, a boulder or two appear, and before they know it, they're hurtling through the rapids. Things then calm down, they just have time to look at each other and say, phew, that was close, before they tipple over a waterfall. They then think that's it, but we as the audience know instinctively that there's an even bigger drop coming. And for me, Parkinson's has felt a bit like that. Spladoosh. My pain increases and my voice starts to fade. Spladoosh. I write my last letter by hand. Spladoosh. My 30-year career comes to an end. I'm not sure really why I'm smiling. It's not really very funny. Parkinson's for me has been cruel, relentless, and insidious. Now, some of you might be able to tell that I'm a little bit breathless. This is not because I'm some sort of Hollywood starlet. Difficult to believe, I know. It is, in fact, down to one of the 40-plus symptoms that is associated with Parkinson's. Let me just repeat that, 40-plus symptoms. This particular gem is called dystonia, and for me it presents like a cramp-type sensation all at my left side, into my chest wall, making it difficult to breathe, and into my face, making it difficult to talk, smile, sing, not that I was very good at that anyway, and eat. Parkinson's is like the worst buffet ever. You don't know which of the 40 symptoms you're going to get, and you don't know how quickly they're going to descend into chaos, how bad they're going to get. Can I describe Parkinson's for you? Yes, I can. It's a bespoke shit show with no cure, at least not yet. The most common symptom is a tremor, and that's in no small way why we don't often see people with Parkinson's eating and drinking in public. I myself had begun to alter what I was ordering if I was eating out, and if I'm really honest, I'd just start to avoid eating out at all if I could. Soup and rice fill me with dread. Soup I'm quite happy to avoid, but rice, I loved rice. I really did. It was my friend. I realised that I needed some help to process my new reality, and this came in the form of counselling. This is a pretty accurate representation of most of my counselling sessions, apart from the hat. My art's not too good. At that point, I felt very alone, very isolated. I couldn't seem to see anybody who looked like me. I felt scared that I wasn't going to get any better, and I felt ashamed about having an old man's condition. Just how many waterfalls were there going to be? But there was a glimmer of hope. Perhaps it wasn't Parkinson's that was causing my symptoms after all. Perhaps it was a brain tumour. So I had an MRI scan to see what the score was, and when the results came back as being negative, there was no tumour, I was absolutely devastated. And I'm sure that you'll appreciate that's pretty messed up. But it meant I was going to have to live life differently. Rather than fighting, I was going to have to learn to accept. Rather than battling, I was going to have to accommodate. And rather than overcoming, I was going to have to learn to endure. And the latter take a different kind of courage to live with. What exactly is Parkinson's? It's essentially when the dopamine-making cells in our brains die. And this results in motor and non-motor symptoms. But dopamine is also a happy chemical. So it's common for people with Parkinson's to have depression. And I'd like to share a small example of this with you, if I may. My daughter rang me to tell me that Mary Poppins was being remade and re-released. And after we chatted and she hung up on the phone, I went and stood in the kitchen by the kettle and I cried for 25 minutes because I felt so bad for Julie Andrews, who was the original actress, for those of you who are very young. I mean, I was bereft for her. I thought she was going to be discarded. I thought she was going to be forgotten about. And if I'm honest, I felt the same about myself. I was worried that that would happen to me too. Eventually, this turned to this. That's me now. I came to terms with the fact that I was going to be living with an uncertain future. I realised that I couldn't control my health, but I could control how I responded to the challenges that it presented. I still couldn't see anyone who looked like me. Now, I know that I'm not very good at looking for things, but seriously, where were the 4 million women with Parkinson's? It came to me in a flash that if I wanted to see a woman with Parkinson's online, perhaps I was going to have to be the woman with Parkinson's online. I would basically try to be the change that I wanted to see in the world. So I took a video of my tremor and put it on my social media. And I thought, if I can help just one person with Parkinson's feel less isolated, less alone, and less ashamed, it would be worth the discomfort that I felt in sharing my own story. What followed? All sorts. Radio interviews, podcasts, newspapers, magazine articles, and even a TV show. Not mine, obviously. Sharing my experience in an authentic way has led to all sorts of experiences that I would never have dreamed of, and all sorts of support and connection. These days I get messages from all over the world, mostly from women, expressing gratitude that they found somebody who seems to understand how they feel and who shares their story with honesty, both the good and the bad of living with Parkinson's. Most of us need to feel seen, and that includes people with Parkinson's, people with young-onset Parkinson's, and women particularly. And there's nowhere that that's more important than when we think about research. As Robin Morgan points out in her own TED Talk, women are not, in fact, just small men. In 2020, it was suggested that I might benefit from a procedure called deep brain stimulation, or DBS, to help alleviate some of my symptoms, particularly my dystonia. I didn't know very much about this brain surgery, so like most of us, I went online to have a look at what I could find. And what I found there was pretty dated, mostly based in America, pretty alarming, if I'm honest, and there wasn't a woman in sight. So for the second time, I thought, if I want to see somebody having this surgery online who's a woman, maybe I might have to be that person. And so began a 2-year collaboration with Parkinson's UK. I channeled my inner Hollywood starlet again, and as a film crew followed me from my initial consultation to my surgery and beyond. The films were really well received by patients and health professionals alike. And we were delighted to win a Smiley People's Choice Award in the Charity Film Awards in London in March of this year. My hope to help just one person had definitely been met at that point, because the DBS and Me film series collectively had been viewed over 1 million times at that point. And there are only so many of the views of that could have been my mum. Returning to the present, I do still feel anxious about what the future might hold, but I no longer feel alone and I no longer feel scared. Recently, I attended the World Parkinson's Conference in Barcelona, and there I was invited to attend an Indian meal with some NHS colleagues, all of whom have Parkinson's. When we were at the venue, one of my new friends said to me, "Would I pass the rice?" Pass the rice, cue dread. But I passed the rice to her with my shaky hands, and she received it with her shaky hands. The lady next to me drank her wine with her shaky hands, and so did the gentleman next to her. There was no fear, No isolation, no shame. It was glorious. I'd found my people. I'd found my tribe. I'd found my community. I really wish that I didn't have Parkinson's, and I can't begin to tell you how much I hope for a cure. I know that there are going to be more waterfalls, but it's important to acknowledge that with all the waterfalls and the losses, Parkinson's has also brought with it profound and unexpected joy. I hope that this talk will inspire you to think that life is not a drill. I hope that you find your tribes, your purpose, and your joy. They're out there waiting for you.